Game loaded.
Hi, and welcome to the edition of Lessons Learned with your host, Rafael Piñero. I just reread an article that appeared on Polygon earlier this week. Well, it's not really an article, it's an excerpt from a book entitled WTF is Wrong with Video Games by Phil Owen. Now, when I first read the article, it was a bit confusing, particularly the part where he used the word art all the time. Art this, art that, and I was like, then I reread the article, and I found this. Yes, this. Storytelling? Really? What the ever-living... You know what? No. I'm gonna rein it in. I'm not gonna let it all out. I already made a video about it explaining why storytelling and video games don't mix. I've done that already. I'm not gonna go there. However, I will talk about this obsession by certain critics of trying to compare video games to movies. Somehow, they believe that video games will become respectable when they rise to the Olympian heights of movie making, if they can, again, tell stories like movies. No. Stop it. Stop it already. Stop it with the movie envy. We don't need it. Video games are video games. Movies are movies. Movies are a form of passive media. Video games are an active media. Interactive. And not merely interactive, but one that demands player participation to the point where the illusion of control, the idea that the player is a central character and actor within the virtual space, is the essence of video games. If you want interactive storytelling, you can go to interactive fiction, which I've defended as its own medium that can do things that neither video games can do, or movies, or television, or books. And that's the point. Video games are different. Video games operate at a different level. They do things movies cannot do. And if you want respect, you need to embrace that. You see, the reason why we respect movies and television as their own art forms, that we believe them to be their own art forms, is because they play to their own strengths and acknowledge their weaknesses. The same thing should be with video games. Now, for example, the article talks about loading times, in a first-person shooter, right, as a superfluous mechanic. And yeah, you can talk about superfluous mechanics. However, you also have to understand that those are genre conventions, just like movies have genre conventions. There's a similar convention in action films where people don't reload unless it's dramatic in some way or another. Why? Because the action would start and stop constantly if you would have the characters constantly loading and reloading their weapons. If someone has a fully automatic assault rifle, pulls the trigger, and squirts out 30 rounds, they would have to reload again. Reload and repeat and reload, and that would make for very choppy action sequences. In video games, the act of reloading sets a different pace, especially in cover-based shooting systems. Now, is it good? Is it bad? It could be made better. Sure, we can have that argument. We should have been having that argument. But don't put it as that, well, video games are bad because they do this, but if they would get rid of that and try to be more like movies with dramatic reloading, then they would be much better. You know what? Comparisons are fair. But comparisons based on envy of a different medium altogether do a disservice to video games. You're not showing what's wrong with video games. You're showing what's wrong with certain critics like yourself, Mr. Owen. I'm sorry, you started on the wrong foot. I really don't care about your book anymore. First with the storytelling and then with this sort of movie envy that you seem to have and other critics have. Movies are movies, video games are video games, and video games, again, will not be respected until they embrace what makes them great and stand on their own. Comparisons are fine, but you won't get anywhere by making comparisons to movies and attempt to turn video games into movies. Well, that's all for me for now. As always, please comment and subscribe, and I'll see you when I see you. Good night.